The Zalari research vessel moved slowly through the empty space between two star systems. Commander Vextai looked out from the bridge at the endless darkness filled with distant stars. His ship carried 37 crew members, all of them scientists who studied plants from different worlds. They had been traveling for 6 months, collecting samples and taking notes about how life grew on planets far from their home. The ship was called the Harmony's Edge, and it was built for peace, not war. The Zalari people had never fought wars with other species. They believed in learning and sharing knowledge. Their ships had no weapons, only research tools and growing chambers where they kept the plants they found. The crew spent their days looking through microscopes and writing reports about the amazing life they discovered on each new world. Vextai was proud of his crew. They came from the best schools on their home planet. Each one was an expert in different types of plant life. Some studied how plants used sunlight. Others looked at how they grew roots or made seeds. All of them loved their work and felt lucky to travel among the stars, learning about life in the galaxy. The ship's computers beeped softly as they recorded data about a nearby planet. The world looked green and blue from space, covered with what might be forests and oceans. Vextai made notes in his journal about visiting this planet next. His people would be very interested in studying the plants that grew there. Everything changed when the warning alarm started screaming. 3 large ships appeared out of nowhere, dropping out of faster-than-light travel right in front of them. These ships were nothing like the peaceful Zalari vessel. They were dark and covered with weapon ports. Spikes stuck out from their hulls like the teeth of some giant beast. Vextai knew immediately what they were facing. Krillian raiders. The Krillians were known throughout this part of the galaxy as killers and thieves. They traveled in small fleets, attacking merchant ships and research vessels like his own. They took everything valuable and killed everyone they found. No one had ever been able to reason with them or buy them off. They seemed to enjoy causing pain and fear. The largest Krillian ship sent a message to the Harmony's Edge. The voice that came through their speakers was harsh and cold. It spoke in the trade language that most species used when they met aliens. Zalari ship, you will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. Anyone who resists will be killed slowly. Your ship and everything on it now belongs to the Krillian Empire. Vextai looked around his bridge at his frightened crew. The Zalari had no experience with violence. Their whole civilization was built around peaceful learning and growing things. They had no weapons training and no way to fight back against raiders like these. "What do we do, Commander?" asked his science officer, a young female named Kala. Her hands shook as she spoke. Vextai thought quickly. Running was impossible. The Krillian ships were faster and stronger than his research vessel. Fighting was also impossible for the same reasons. That left only one choice. "Send a distress signal," he ordered his communications officer. "Use the emergency channel. Tell anyone who can hear us what is happening and where we are." The communications officer, an older male named Keltha, started working at his station. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he prepared the message. Meanwhile, the Krillian ships moved closer. Vextai could see their weapon ports opening, ready to fire if his ship tried to escape. The first blast hit the Harmony's Edge on the left side. The whole ship shook like a leaf in a storm. Lights went out all over the bridge and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. Crew members cried out in fear and pain as they were thrown from their chairs. "They're not waiting for us to surrender," Vextai realized. "They're attacking anyway." More blasts hit the ship. Each one tore holes in the hull and destroyed important systems. The Krillians were not trying to capture the ship intact. They just wanted to kill everyone on board and take whatever was left. The main power failed, leaving only emergency lighting. The artificial gravity stopped working, making everyone float in the air unless they held on to something. Warning alarms echoed through the corridors as air began leaking out through the holes in the hull. Keltha fought to keep his communications equipment working as the ship died around him. Sparks flew from damaged circuits and his screen kept going dark and coming back on, but he was determined to send their distress call before it was too late. "I've got the signal ready," he called out over the noise of the alarms. "Emergency frequency, maximum power. I'm sending our location and what happened to us." "Do it," Vextai ordered. The distress signal went out into space, traveling faster than light toward any world or ship that might be listening. It carried their coordinates, the number of crew members who were hurt or dying, and a simple message asking for help from anyone who could travel between the stars. As soon as the signal was sent, Another Krillian blast destroyed the communications array. Now they had no way to talk to the outside galaxy. They could only wait and hope that someone had heard their call for help. The attack stopped, but the damage was done. The Harmony's edge was dying. Air continued to leak out of the ship faster than the emergency systems could replace it. The medical bay was full of injured crew members, and 3 scientists had already died from their wounds. Vextai floated through the dark corridors of his ship, checking on his people and trying to keep them calm. Many of them were crying. Some asked him if rescue ships were coming. He told them yes, even though he was not sure anyone had heard their signal. Hours passed. The air grew thinner and harder to breathe. The temperature dropped as the ship's heating systems failed. One by one, more crew members died from their injuries or from the cold and lack of air. Vextai began to think that his distress call had been their last act before the Krillians killed them all. He did not know that far away. On a small blue planet that most of the galaxy had never heard of, someone was listening. The signal had traveled for 3 days through space before it reached the outer edge of a star system, where a young species had just learned to build radio telescopes and space stations. These people had only recently discovered that other life existed among the stars. They were eager to learn about the galaxy and to meet other peaceful species. When the distress call reached their monitoring station, they immediately understood what it meant. Someone was dying out there and they needed help. For the first time in galactic history, humans were about to answer an alien cry for help. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee when the strange signal came through the deep space monitors at Luna Station. He had been working the night shift for 6 months, listening to radio waves from distant stars and looking for signs of alien life. Most nights were quiet, filled only with the background noise of space and the occasional burst from a pulsar or dying star. This signal was different. The computer systems started beeping loudly as they tried to make sense of the transmission. Jake leaned forward in his chair and watched the data flow across his screens. The signal was clearly artificial, made by some kind of technology rather than natural space phenomena. More importantly, it was using mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence. Jake had trained for this moment his whole career, but now that it was happening, his hands shook as he reached for the emergency communication link to Earth Defense Command. He had just received humanity's first confirmed message from an alien civilization. The translation computers worked for 2 hours to decode the message. The alien language was unlike anything in Earth's databases, but the basic meaning came through clearly. Someone was in trouble. Someone was dying. Someone needed help immediately. Admiral Lisa Kane arrived at Luna Station 4 hours after Jake first detected the signal. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had spent 30 years in Earth's space forces. She read the translated message 3 times before looking up at Jake. "How sure are we that this is real?" she asked. 99% certain, Jake replied. "The signal came from deep space, way beyond our solar system. The mathematics check out. The distress patterns match what we would expect from a damaged ship losing power and life support." Admiral Kane nodded slowly. She had been preparing for first contact with aliens for decades, but she had always imagined it would happen during a peaceful meeting, not during a rescue mission. Still, the message was clear. Someone out there needed help, and they were asking anyone who could travel faster than light to come save them. "How long would it take us to reach them?" she asked. "The Defiance could make the trip in 18 hours, Jake said. "She's our fastest ship with the newest hyperspace engines." The Defiance was Earth's most advanced rescue vessel, built specifically for long-range emergency missions. It carried 40 crew members and enough supplies to help survivors from a large ship disaster. More importantly, it was armed well enough to defend itself if the rescue turned out to be a trap. Captain Ben Rogers got the call at his home outside Colorado Springs. He was eating dinner with his family when his communication device buzzed with an emergency code. Within minutes, he was driving toward the spaceport where his ship waited. Ben had been commanding rescue missions for 15 years. He had saved people from burning space stations, damaged asteroid miners, and ships that had lost power near Jupiter. But he had never attempted to rescue aliens before. The idea both excited and worried him. His crew arrived at the ship within 2 hours of the emergency call. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sam Parker brought extra medical supplies and portable life support equipment. Tactical Officer Lieutenant Amy Davis made sure their weapons were ready in case they encountered hostile forces. Communications specialist Tony Clark worked on programming the translation systems to handle alien languages. The hardest part was explaining to his crew that they might be flying into a trap. The distress signal could be fake, designed to lure human ships into an ambush. Even if it was real, the aliens who sent it might be dangerous, or they might be under attack by someone even more dangerous. "I want everyone to understand," Ben told his crew as they prepared for launch. "We're going into completely unknown territory. We don't know what we'll find out there. Anyone who wants to stay behind can do so with no questions asked." Nobody left. The Defiance launched from Earth orbit 18 hours after Jake first detected the alien signal. The ship's hyperspace engines powered up with a deep humming sound that crew members could feel in their bones. Ben sat in his captain's chair and gave the order to jump to faster than light speed. Space twisted around them as they entered hyperspace. The normal view of stars disappeared, replaced by swirling colors that hurt to look at directly. The ship would travel for 18 hours through this strange dimension, before dropping back into normal space near the coordinates given in the distress signal. During the journey, Dr. Parker prepared the medical bay for alien patients. He had no idea what the beings who sent the signal would look like or what kind of biology they might have. He gathered equipment that could handle different atmospheric mixtures and gravity levels. He also prepared surgical tools that could work on various body types. Lieutenant Davis spent her time studying the tactical situation. The aliens had mentioned being attacked by someone called Krillians. She had never heard that name before, but it sounded military. She made sure the ship's weapons were ready and programmed the sensors to look for hostile vessels when they arrived. Tony Clark worked with the translation computers, trying to improve their ability to handle the alien language. The distress signal had given them a small sample to work with, but he knew they would need to communicate more complex ideas if they were going to coordinate a rescue. Captain Rogers walked through his ship, talking to crew members and making sure everyone was ready. Many of them seemed nervous about meeting aliens for the first time. Others were excited about the chance to make history. All of them were determined to help whoever had sent that desperate call for aid. "What do you think they'll look like?" asked engineering specialist Maria Santos as she checked the power systems. "Does it matter?" Ben replied. "Someone out there is hurt and needs our help. That's all I need to know." The 18-hour journey felt much longer to everyone on board. They were flying toward the unknown, carrying the hopes of their entire species. This would be humanity's first contact with alien life, and it was happening because someone had asked for help. As they approached the end of their hyperspace jump, Ben called his crew to battle stations. They had no idea what they would find when they dropped back into normal space. It could be a peaceful rescue operation, or it could be a fight for their lives. The Defiance fell out of hyperspace near the coordinates from the distress signal. Immediately, their sensors detected two ships floating in the darkness. One was clearly damaged, with hull breaches and failing power systems. The other ship was darker and more angular, obviously built for war rather than peace. The damaged ship matched the energy signature from the distress signal. The warship did not. Ben realized they had arrived just in time to interrupt an attack. The Defiance dropped out of hyperspace and immediately began scanning the area around them. Captain Ben Rogers watched his screens as the sensor data came in. Two ships floated in the darkness ahead, just as their equipment had detected during the final moments of their jump. The first ship was clearly the source of the distress signal. It was about the same size as the Defiance but built very differently. Where human ships were angular and practical, this vessel had flowing curves like it was grown rather than built. Hull breaches showed along its sides and its power readings were barely above zero. Whoever was inside that ship was dying. The second ship was something else entirely. It was dark and covered with weapon ports that looked like they were designed to cause maximum damage. Spikes jutted out from its hull in patterns that seemed meant to intimidate, rather than serve any practical purpose. This was clearly a warship and an aggressive one. "Captain, I'm reading life signs on the damaged vessel," reported Dr. Parker from his station. "Faint, but definitely there. I count 30-plus individuals, but many of the readings are getting weaker." "And the other ship?" Ben asked. Lieutenant Davis checked her tactical displays. "The warship has full power and weapons charged. They're not responding to our hails, but they haven't moved to attack us yet either. I think we surprised them." Tony Clark worked at his communications station trying to establish contact with both vessels. The damaged ship was barely able to respond, but he managed to get a weak signal through. The voice that came back was different from anything he had ever heard. But the translation software was working. Unknown vessel. This is Commander Vextai of the research ship Harmony's Edge. Are you responding to our distress call? Please help us. Many of my people are dying. Ben felt relief wash over him. They had found the right ship, and someone was still alive to talk to them. This is Captain Ben Rogers of the Earthship Defiance. We received your signal and came to help. What is your situation? There was a pause before Vextai responded. His voice sounded weak and tired. We are researchers, peaceful people who study plant life. The Krillians attacked us without warning. Our ship is dying and we cannot repair the damage ourselves. We have wounded who need immediate medical attention. Understood. We're preparing to dock with your ship and begin rescue operations. That was when the Krillian warship finally responded. A harsh voice came through the communication system, speaking in the same trade language that Vextai had used. Unknown vessel, you will withdraw immediately. This system is under Krillian control. The damaged ship is our prize. Leave now or be destroyed. Ben looked around his bridge at his crew. They all had the same expression on their faces. They had come here to help someone, and they were not about to be scared away by threats. This is Captain Rogers. We are conducting a rescue mission to save lives. We suggest you withdraw and leave these people alone. The response was immediate and filled with what sounded like laughter. You dare threaten us? We are Krillian warriors. We have conquered dozens of species. Your single ship cannot stand against us. We'll see about that, Ben said quietly, then switched to his internal communications. All stations prepare for combat. Amy, I want weapons ready but not targeted yet. Let's see if we can still resolve this peacefully. The Krillian ship began moving toward them. Its weapon ports opened further, and energy readings spiked as it charged its main guns. Ben realized that peaceful resolution was not going to be possible. Vextai, we're going to need to deal with the Krillian ship before we can help you. Can your people hold on a little longer? We will try, came the weak reply. Please hurry. We are losing more crew members every few minutes. Ben made his decision. Amy, target their weapon systems. Maria, give me maximum power to engines and shields. Tony, send a message to the Krillians telling them they have 30 seconds to withdraw or we will consider them hostile. The countdown began. Ben watched his screens as the Krillian ship continued its approach. At 15 seconds, it was close enough that he could see details of its hull design. At 10 seconds, he could see weapon barrels swiveling to point at his ship. At 5 seconds, he gave the order. Fire. The Defiance opened up with everything it had. Human weapons technology had been developed through centuries of warfare on Earth and decades of preparation for possible alien threats. The ship's main particle beams struck the Krillian vessel along its weapon ports, tearing through armor that had been designed to intimidate rather than truly protect. The Krillian ship returned fire immediately, but its shots went wide. The aliens had expected their reputation to scare off any opposition. They were not prepared to fight someone who actually fought back with skill and advanced technology. Their shields are down 40%, Amy reported. Our shields are holding at 95%. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Krillians had ever experienced. They were used to attacking peaceful species who had no military technology. The humans, by contrast, had spent their entire history preparing for war. Every system on the Defiance was designed for combat efficiency. Ben maneuvered his ship with skills learned from decades of training and combat simulations. The Defiance twisted and dodged through space while its weapons carved pieces off the Krillian warship. Maria pushed the engines beyond their normal limits, giving Ben the speed he needed to stay ahead of enemy fire. Direct hit on their main reactor, Amy called out. They're losing power across all systems. The Krillian ship tried to retreat, but it was too late. Its engines were damaged and its weapons were mostly destroyed. Ben could have finished it off completely, but he was not interested in unnecessary killing. This is Captain Rogers to the Krillian vessel. Your ship is disabled. Withdraw from this system immediately and do not return. If you attack peaceful ships again, we will find you. There was no response from the Krillians, but their ship began limping away at what little speed its damaged engines could provide. Ben turned his attention back to the rescue mission. Tony, get me Commander Vextai again. The alien's voice came through, stronger now and filled with amazement. Captain Rogers, what just happened? The Krillian ship is leaving. We had a disagreement with them about their behavior toward peaceful researchers. Now let's focus on getting your people the help they need. Prepare for docking procedures. As the Defiance moved closer to the Harmony's edge, Ben realized that this moment would change everything. Humans had just announced their presence to the galaxy by defending aliens they had never met before. There would be consequences for this action, but he knew they had done the right thing. Nobody threatened innocent people while humans were around to stop them. The docking process between the Defiance and the Harmony's edge took 3 hours of careful work. The Zalari ship was so badly damaged that normal docking procedures would not work. Engineering specialist Maria Santos had to manually align the airlocks while sparks flew from damaged circuits all around her. Captain Ben Rogers stood in the main cargo bay of his ship, waiting for the first face-to-face meeting between humans and aliens. His crew had quickly converted the large space into a medical treatment area, where Dr. Parker could work on the injured Zalari. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls as both crews prepared for this historic moment. The airlock finally opened with a soft hissing sound. Commander Vextai floated through the opening, his body showing the effects of zero gravity and his injuries from the Krillian attack. He was taller than the humans, but had a similar basic body shape with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head with 2 eyes. His skin had a greenish color that reminded Ben of plants. Vextai looked around the cargo bay with obvious amazement. The human ship was built very differently from his own vessel. Where Zalari technology was smooth and curved, human technology was angular and practical. Everything seemed designed for efficiency and durability rather than beauty. Captain Rogers, Vextai said through the translation device that Tony Clark had rigged up, I cannot express how grateful my people are for your help. You saved our lives at great risk to yourselves. Ben stepped forward and offered his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Vextai looked confused for a moment, then carefully reached out and took the offered hand. His skin felt cool and slightly rough like touching tree bark. We're glad we could help, Ben said. My medical officer is ready to treat your wounded. How many need immediate attention? 15 are badly hurt, Vextai replied. 3 more died while we waited for rescue. They held on as long as they could, hoping that help would come. Dr. Parker and his team immediately went to work treating the injured Zalari. The alien biology was different from human, but not so different that human medical knowledge was useless. The doctor found that Zalari blood was green instead of red, and their internal organs were arranged differently. But the basic principles of keeping someone alive were the same. What impressed the Zalari medical staff most was how aggressively the humans worked to save lives. Zalari medicine was gentle and slow, focused on helping the body heal itself naturally. Human medicine was direct and forceful, using surgery and drugs to fix problems immediately. Your doctors refused to give up, observed Kayla, the young Zalari science officer, as she watched Dr. Parker work on a crew member who had been badly injured in the attack. Even when the damage seems too severe to repair, they keep trying. That's just how we are, Ben explained. We believe that as long as someone is alive, there's still hope they can be saved. As the medical work continued, Ben and Vextai talked about the situation in this part of the galaxy. The Zalari commander explained that his people were part of a loose alliance of peaceful species who worked together to explore space and share knowledge. They had no military technology because they had never needed it. The Krillians have been getting worse lately, Vextai said. They used to only attack merchant ships carrying valuable cargo. Now they attack anyone they find, even research vessels like ours that have nothing worth stealing. They seem to enjoy causing fear and pain. Ben listened with growing anger. The idea of attacking defenseless researchers made him sick. On Earth, even during the worst wars, there had usually been some attempt to protect civilians and non-combatants. How many species do the Krillians terrorize? Ben asked. In this sector of space, perhaps 20 or 30 peaceful civilizations live in fear of them, Vextai replied. The Krillians have been expanding their territory for decades. They demand tribute from worlds that cannot defend themselves. Those who refuse are attacked without mercy. And nobody fights back? Vextai looked sad as he answered. Most of our alliance members gave up military technology generations ago. We believed that peaceful cooperation was better than weapons and warfare. The few species that still have military forces are too far away to help when the Krillians attack. Ben thought about this as he watched his crew work alongside the Zalari to repair their ship's life support systems. Humans had never given up their military technology because their history was full of conflicts. Even as they reached for the stars, they had continued to improve their weapons and defensive systems. "What will you do now?" Ben asked. "Will you report this attack to your alliance?" "Yes, but there is little they can do. The Krillians will probably send more ships to look for us when their damaged vessel reports what happened. They do not like being challenged, and they will want revenge." Ben made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Then we'll have to make sure they understand that attacking peaceful people is no longer acceptable. Over the next few hours, as repairs continued on both ships, Ben learned more about the political situation in this part of space. The peaceful species were scattered across dozens of star systems, each focusing on their own research and development. They traded knowledge and resources but had no central government or military force. The Krillians, by contrast, were organized like an empire with a central command structure and fleets of warships. They had been expanding their control slowly but steadily, taking over one system at a time. Most species simply paid tribute rather than fight back. "Your people are the first to successfully resist them in many years," Vextai said. "Word of what happened here will spread quickly through both official and unofficial channels. Every peaceful species will want to know about the newcomers who defeated Krillian raiders. And every aggressive species will want to test us," Ben realized. "Yes. You have announced your presence to the galaxy in a very dramatic way. There will be consequences." The repairs on the Harmony's Edge were finally complete enough for the ship to make it back to Zilari space. Dr. Parker had saved all but one of the seriously injured crew members, and the rest were stable enough for the journey home. As the two ships prepared to part ways, Vextai made a request that surprised Ben. "Captain Rogers, would you be willing to come with us to meet with our alliance leaders? They will want to hear directly from you about human capabilities and intentions. Many species will be eager to establish contact with your people." Ben thought about Admiral Kane back on Earth, and the diplomatic chaos that was probably already starting as news of first contact reached home. But he also thought about the other peaceful species living in fear of Krillian attacks. "We'll come," he decided. "It's time the galaxy learned that peaceful people don't have to live in fear anymore." The two ships set course for Zilari space, carrying news that would transform the political balance of an entire sector of the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the rescue of the Harmony's Edge, and the galaxy was a very different place. Captain Ben Rogers stood on the bridge of his ship as it patrolled the trade routes between 3 different star systems. The Defiance was no longer alone in space. 27 other human ships now worked alongside his crew, responding to distress calls and protecting peaceful traders from raiders. What had started as a single rescue mission had grown into something much larger. Every week brought new requests for help from species across this sector of space. Pirates, raiders, and aggressive empires had terrorized peaceful civilizations for decades. Now, for the first time, someone was fighting back effectively. Lieutenant Amy Davis, now promoted to commander and captain of her own ship, sent a message to Ben from the patrol vessel Vigilant. "Ben, we just received 14 distress calls in the past 2 days. 3 merchant convoys under attack, 2 research stations being threatened, and 9 individual ships requesting escort through dangerous systems." Ben was not surprised by the numbers. Word had spread quickly through the galaxy about the humans who answered every cry for help. Peaceful species had started sending messages to Earth, begging for protection from the various predator races that hunted them. Earth's governments had responded by creating the first interstellar peacekeeping force in known galactic history. The response had not been entirely positive. Aggressive species like the Krillians saw human intervention as a threat to their way of life. They had begun organizing larger fleets and more coordinated attacks, hoping to overwhelm the human ships through sheer numbers. Dr. Elena Martinez, Earth's first xenobiologist, worked from a new diplomatic station built in neutral space. She spent her days meeting with representatives from dozens of different species, all wanting to establish formal relationships with humanity. The small office she had been given was always crowded with aliens seeking protection, trade agreements, or simply wanting to meet the species that had changed everything. "Ambassador Sullivan is ready for the council meeting," her assistant informed her. Dr. Martinez nodded and gathered her notes for what would be the most important diplomatic session in human history. The Galactic Council had been formed just 3 months earlier, bringing together representatives from 47 different species. It was the first time in centuries that so many civilizations had worked together on anything. The humans had not started the council, but everyone agreed that the meetings would not have been possible without human protection. making it safe for peaceful species to travel and meet. Ambassador Kate Sullivan walked into the council chambers with confidence earned through months of difficult negotiations. She was a former diplomat who had spent her career resolving conflicts on Earth. Now she faced the much larger challenge of bringing peace to an entire sector of space. The council chambers were a remarkable sight. Beings of every imaginable shape and size sat around a circular table that accommodated different atmospheric and gravitational needs. Some delegates breathed different gases and sat in environmental suits. Others were so large or small that special platforms had been built to allow them to participate. Representative Zara of the Trilaxian Consortium spoke first. Her people were traders who had suffered greatly under Krillian attacks before human protection made their trade routes safe again. The human peacekeeping force has saved thousands of lives and protected billions of credits worth of trade goods. Our economy has grown by 30% since their patrols began. Not everyone was completely happy with the human presence. Delegate Morvex of the Hegemony Worlds expressed concerns that many species shared. While we appreciate human protection, we must ask about their long-term intentions. History shows us that military powers eventually become conquerors. How do we know that humans will not follow the same path? Ambassador Sullivan had been expecting this question. It came up in almost every diplomatic meeting. The human approach to peacekeeping is based on a simple principle that we call the volunteer system. Every human ship in our peacekeeping force is crewed by volunteers who chose this mission. We do not conscript soldiers or force anyone to serve. More importantly, we do not seek territory, tribute, or political control over the species we protect. Commander Vextai, now serving as an official liaison between the Zalari government and human forces, stood to support Sullivan's statement. I have worked closely with human peacekeepers for months. They refuse payment for their services. They do not demand bases on our worlds. They ask for nothing except that we treat each other with respect and help others when we can. The debate continued for hours as delegates from different species shared their experiences with human peacekeepers. The stories were remarkably consistent. Human ships appeared whenever someone sent a distress call. They fought off attackers, provided medical aid, and helped with repairs. Then they left without asking for anything in return. Captain Lisa Chen, now commanding a patrol group of 5 ships, sent regular reports back to Earth about the changing political situation. The Krillian Empire had suffered dozens of defeats as human forces systematically destroyed their raiding fleets. Other aggressive species had begun to pull back from areas where human patrols operated. The predator species are learning that attacking peaceful traders is no longer profitable, she reported to Admiral Kane. They lose ships and crew every time they encounter our forces. Some are starting to look for other ways to make a living. The transformation was not limited to military affairs. Trade between peaceful species had increased dramatically as protected shipping routes made commerce safer and more profitable. Scientific cooperation had expanded as researchers could travel safely between different worlds. Cultural exchanges had begun as species that had been isolated by fear of raiders started communicating with each other. Dr. Parker, now serving as the chief medical officer for the entire peacekeeping force, had established medical exchanges with alien doctors from 30 different species. Human medical techniques were being shared with civilizations that had never developed aggressive treatments for severe injuries. In return, humans were learning about alien biology and new approaches to healing. The final item on the council agenda was the most important. Ambassador Sullivan presented a proposal that would formalize the relationship between human peacekeepers and the species they protected. We proposed the creation of the Galactic Peace Accord, she announced. This agreement would establish basic principles for interspecies relations, including the protection of peaceful traders, researchers, and civilians from unprovoked attacks. Humans commit to continuing our peacekeeping operations as long as they are needed and wanted. The vote was unanimous. 47 different species agreed to the first interstellar peace treaty in galactic history. As the council session ended, Ambassador Sullivan looked out at the diverse assembly of alien representatives. Just months earlier, many of these species had lived in fear, hiding in their home systems and avoiding contact with the wider galaxy. Now they were working together to build something better. We received a cry for help, she said in her closing remarks. We answered because we believe that everyone deserves to live without fear. We stayed because we discovered that the galaxy is full of people worth protecting. Commander Vextai approached her after the session ended. Ambassador, there is something you should know. Our deep space monitors have detected signals from beyond this sector. Word of what has happened here is spreading to other parts of the galaxy. We are receiving messages from peaceful species hundreds of light years away, asking if the humans might be willing to expand their protection to other regions. Sullivan smiled as she looked out through the station's windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, more people were calling for help, and as long as humans existed, those calls would not go unanswered.